Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is that you are and wherever you may be. Thank you very much for making us a part of your day. I am Brad Franklin, creative content right here in Chesterfield, and I'm very glad to tell you that Chesterfield Behind the Mic is on the air once again. One of the cool things about doing a podcast like this is that you learn a lot, and I promise that was not a pun. I genuinely mean that you learn a lot, and the topic of today's podcast, lifelong learning, the Lifelong Learning Institute here in Chesterfield, is something that I wasn't super familiar with until we started kind of talking about this as a potential topic for the show. And I'm really excited to have Rachel Ramirez, who is, I believe, the executive director of the Lifelong Learning Institute here in Chesterfield. First off, Rachel, welcome to the program. How are you?
Thanks, Brad. It's so good to be here. I've been listening and aware of the podcast since you all started. So
that's fun.
I'm honored to be a part of it today.
I'm glad to have you here. Like I said, this was a topic that I think, it was always, it's something that like top of mind. Maybe it's not quite there unless you have someone in your life who is taking part in something like this, going, attending courses, that kind of thing. But I never really thought about sort of the concerted effort that it might take to make that thing a thing. And so I'm really excited to get into it with you today. First, I want to start with a little bit of an intro for you and to get into your background a little bit. I like to do this for folks who are listening or watching the show, so they get a sense of like who the person is and like what they're, what brings them to the table, so to speak. And I'm just curious, talk to me a little bit about sort of your background and how it is that you came to be here today.
Sure. So the story starts when I was a barista at Starbucks, and I was serving
so many good stories do.
I was serving coffee every morning to hundreds of people, and It was the Swift Creek location on Hall Street. And so a lady named Monica came in with her husband, Tim, every morning on her way to work. And I knew she worked with older adults. And so fast forward a few years, and I was working for First Market Bank. And I got in touch with her because my grandmother was looking for something to do during the day. And I said, Monica, don't you have a program for older adults? And she's like, yeah, send her over. I really wasn't familiar with the organization at that time, but then I became familiar with it through my grandmother's interaction and her membership. And then fast forward a few more years, and Monica got in touch with me and said, Rachel, I'm about to have to move for Tim's job, and I think you'd be perfect for this job.
Right.
And I was working for another nonprofit at the time. And so we got together. She told me the good, the bad, and the ugly, as every job has, and the hard parts and the wonderful parts. And by the end of that conversation at Sedona Tap House, I felt like she had put together a puzzle.
Okay.
I was still in my late 20s at the time, but I had really assembled just some really interesting and diverse experience, both through volunteer work with my church and some additional nonprofits, as well as my career. And so I just felt like she had put together a puzzle of all those little pieces of experience into this one job. Right. And so I felt like it was tailor-made for me. So I took a chance, I applied. And because of our sponsorship through VCU, we're staffed through VCU, so it was a competitive application process. Over 30 applicants. Somehow I got an interview, and then I was selected by the board as the third executive director. And we have a rich history. Monica Hughes is the one I was talking about. She was our second executive director, and our first executive director was Debbie Leidheiser, who went on to be the senior advocate for Chesterfield County until her retirement a few years back.
Gotcha. So in terms of for a lot of people, something placed wherever they end up, it's something that they think about for a long time. For you, it was like almost that this opportunity found you in a sort of roundabout way, even though maybe you were always headed toward it, given your other passions and interests and things of that nature. Before we get started in talking about the Institute specifically, I just want to kind of give folks a baseline sort of idea of the way that you would define lifelong learning. I think as folks who have teachers in their lives, right, there's always this phrase of, a lifelong learner, right? But what you do and the passion that you have for it and the expertise, obviously experience, is a little bit different. Talk to me a little bit about sort of what lifelong learning means to you and certainly to the organization.
Sure. So I like to separate that into two answers to the question. because I believe there is lifelong learning. I call it the little L's.
Okay.
So it's just lifelong learning in general. And there's no age requirement for that. There's from womb to tomb, we are all learning.
Right.
And so when you stick that word lifelong in front of it, I define that as the use of formal or informal learning opportunities throughout life for personal fulfillment.
Okay.
So it's the extra stuff. It's the
Right.
stuff you learn because you want to learn it.
Right.
And then the second answer would be lifelong learning with the big L's. And this is where an organization has been designed
Right.
to provide this
Right.
for its members or participants. And that really over the years has been learning in retirement or learning simply for the sake of learning and not for credit
Right.
within a community of learners.
Right.
So that pulls in the people, the peers.
Right.
And so that is really how we define it. And there's over 400 community-based organizations called Lifelong Learning Institutes in the United States.
Oh, interesting. Because you were just talking a second ago, and it reminded me of something. When I was in college, I had a professor who said that basically college was not necessarily about just about sort of preparing you for your job. College was also about finding the things outside of your job that you wanted to be interested in. And it sounds to me, the way you're sort of framing it here, is that that's an approach or maybe an idea that carries on well past, that period and all periods, really. The Lifelong Learning Institute here in Chesterfield, I believe, opened March of 2004, 18 courses, I think it was 61 charter members at the time. You've got, obviously, a lot has happened in the years since then. You have partnerships with both Chesterfield County and VCU. And I'm just curious, talk to me a little bit about sort of the organization and how the process works for folks who might be interested in, taking one of those courses or becoming a member.
Absolutely. So because of our strategic partnerships with Chesterfield County and VCU, we have been able to grow exponentially over the years. And we are grateful for those partnerships. They've allowed us as an organization to really focus on our mission of providing lifelong learning opportunities for midlife and older adults. And we do that through educational classes, academic classes, social and fitness opportunities.
Right.
And so anyone who is interested in becoming a member just has to either go on our website or stop by our office and complete an application. The membership dues are $150 a year,
Okay.
and that's all inclusive. So it's like a buffet of the courses. You look
buffet of learning.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So we put out 3 catalogs per year.
Okay.
So the next one coming out is January 5th.
Okay.
Which may be after the release of this podcast.
Yeah.
So it was January 5th it came out. And that will have over 280 courses
Okay.
that members can choose from. And the majority of those are included in their membership. So you just become a member, and then you can choose as many courses as you can fit into your life
Right.
that are interesting to you. Very few of our courses have a material or a book fee
Okay.
that is paid by the member and then paid out for that material or book. And then our fitness courses also have an additional fee. Because those are the instructors that we do pay.
Right.
All of our other instructors are 100% volunteers. They love what they do so much that they want to teach it
Oh, nice.
as a volunteer. And then, of course, our students are volunteering to be in the classroom. And so it's just this amazing environment that's
Right.
created when you
Right.
have volunteer students and volunteer instructors that are talking about a topic, and the discussion is always rich because there's so much life experience. So a lot of times our instructors will come out of the class and say, well, I learned something
Right.
new.
That's fun.
I was the teacher and I learned something, because you may be teaching about even a specific point in history, and somebody in the room could have been there or been on staff.
there you go.
There's
Right.
just so many.
Yeah.
We just have such a diverse membership, and
Okay.
with all sorts of life experiences and walks, and even educational backgrounds,
right.
and so it's a really rich experience. I'll also mention that our members get involved as volunteers. So a lot of our instructors are also members.
Okay.
So that one, for instance, she's a retired nurse, and she was on our curriculum committee, and she saw that we needed an art history teacher. Somebody had requested a class on art history, and she said she remembered then that she minored in art history in college 40 years ago, but then went on to become a nurse.
Right.
And so she that sparked something in her,
right.
Her love for art history and art, and so she has now become one of our most popular instructors.
That's cool.
Has, developed, I think, 6 or 7 different courses over the last few years. So just examples like that.
That's great. It's good to know that those of us with minors in college, that there may be somewhere down the road, we'll actually come back to that thing.
Exactly.
When you were just describing this, and this might sound ridiculous, but when you were just describing it, it was like Netflix, but for learning and classes. Because you're talking about basically, right, they pay the membership, and they basically, as many classes they can take, if they don't have any sort of like time machine or whatever to go back and take some more. But essentially, as much as they can do, talk to me a little bit about some of the topics. You mentioned, obviously, art history there. You mentioned fitness. I'm just curious for folks who might be curious about it, what kind of things, it sounds like you guys change these things and offer, you add stuff to your offering pretty regularly. But just give me a sense of like, what are some of the things that folks are learning about at your institute?
Sure. How much time do we have?
Well, technically speaking, no. But I'm just just give me a handful. Give me a handful.
So we have what I would call our core curriculum, and so those are the classes that repeat each semester. So we have our spring semester, which is January through April, our summer semester, which is May through August, and our fall semester, which is September through December. Okay. And so we have courses that repeat each of those semesters, and they're the same or very similar in topic. An example of that would be our music, drama, and dance classes. Okay. So we have a wind ensemble that gets together on Tuesday afternoons. We have a lifelong musicians group that come together and basically have a jam session for 90 minutes on Thursday afternoons.
We should have brought them to the podcast.
We should have. They would come. And then we have drama groups like Readers Theater, different beginning, and we even have an improv class coming back in the spring. And then our dance classes like tap dancing, line dancing, ballroom dancing. Those are pretty core to what we and they repeat. A lot of them are led by members and some from people from the community. But then we have fresh offerings each and every semester. And so in the computers, technology, math, and science, that could be a class introduction to your iPhone, questions, tips and tricks for your Android phone.
Oh, nice.
We have even a basic math class coming up in the spring, as well as a class on spreadsheets. Right. And so those categories, we have new offerings as well as repeat each and every semester. We have literature, poetry, and film as a category. Okay. And so we have several courses that will use a short story or a book as a starting point for discussion. And then we also have a Enjoy Poetry group that meets every week. Okay. And then we have groups that watch a film and discuss them. We also have a History of Animation course coming up in the spring semester. And then, go down to history, you name it. Right. This is our most popular category.
That seems like it would track well.
And it is everything from the history of graffiti to archaeological finds and history of certain battles. We have Jim Treisler from the Virginia War Memorial teaches at least a course in this category every time. The president of our board of directors, John Lemza, he teaches a course in this category. Right. Shep Smith is another one of our popular instructors, and he's teaching on the Last Frontier in the spring. So we've just got an amazing lineup there. Health and wellness, we have courses taught by medical professionals, so doctors and nurses and people who are in the field doing this all the time. And it's amazing to have an hour of their time, uninterrupted time,
for sure,
to hear about foot health or certain advances in technology even.
Right.
So those are always really interesting. And we have foreign languages. We have Spanish, Arabic, German, French.
What I'm hearing you say essentially is that literally everything under the sun, because I'm as you're kind of talking through, I'm like kind of checking like little boxes in my head, and it really does sound like you kind of have all of the bases covered, and not just the bases, but then those sub levels. Like it's not just like the superficial. Here's a thing. There's you dive pretty deep into it. From an age perspective, the folks who come to these courses, what I know that it's at a certain age up, but I'm just curious, like, what's your average sort of attendance age?
Yeah, so the majority of our members are between the ages of 60 and 80.
Okay.
But we also have some members that are almost 50, but identify as midlife adults, and so they are certainly welcome. And we also have members in their 90s.
Okay.
So everybody is welcome.
And that kind of leads into my sort of last question, big picture question for you, which is, why do you feel like this is important? Like, why do you feel like lifelong learning is important? Obviously for you, this is a passion that you've found. It sort of merged a lot of different interests in your own life. But it doesn't take long to talk to you about this, to understand that this is a real passion for you, and that you've seen the impact that it can make. And I'm just curious from your point of view, why you feel like lifelong learning is important.
Right. So I've been here since 2014. So I came in when the organization was 10 years old. And personally, I have a passion for people, and I have a passion for learning. Mm-hmm. And you can imagine this is my dream job, because I get to be involved with both of my passions daily and see the benefit, just seeing the faces of the members who have come in. And I can relate it to like a flower that needs water. Mm. So they come in and, they've been through some difficult transitions recently, and they just need a place to belong, and they need people to care about them. And they also need that mental stimulation. And so when I see them walk in the first day, they get a tour, they talk to our volunteer at the front desk, and then to see them, a month or two later in the lounge, or in classroom, and they just look like they've flourished again, and they're this healthy flower. And that really is why we do what we do, because we know that through mental stimulation, through finding purpose, a renewed sense of purpose, and through community, that lifelong learning can really have an impact on people's lives. Right. And it's something that I did a lot of research when I was getting my master's at VCU a few years ago on lifelong learning, and sort of how it had started and grown over the years. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's so interesting is that these communities have really brought to light the fact that people in retirement still have potential, right? And they still have something to bring to the table, right? And so when you realize that as an organization, you give so many people an opportunity to find a renewed sense of purpose, and that there are so many studies that have been found that that say that if you have a sense of purpose, no matter how old you are, you have a lower rate of mortality. And that's powerful. Yeah, we could actually be extending and saving lives. And that was sort of a bonus when I came in, when I did this research. That, I'd seen the benefit of it, but even in my own grandmother, like I said, she joined in 2009. She's still a member, comes 2 to 3 days a week for her classes, and she is 95 years old.
Wow, that's awesome. Yep. I can't imagine how rewarding it must be to see that impact and see it sort of grow exponentially, because every person who comes through your door who, sees their life positively impacted in a way, there's a chance that they're going to tell 2 or 3 of their friends. and it's, kind of spreads like wildfire that way. And it's so good, especially in these times, to have something good, that kind of that word of mouth, sort of everybody picks everybody up sort of thing. That's such a cool, and like I said, I can imagine that it's incredibly rewarding.
Absolutely. It's something that I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to really impact people's lives and help them find that sense of belonging, that sense of purpose, and that mental stimulation to keep their brain active. And that's even been shown to reduce the risk for Alzheimer's and dementia, and also have an impact on social isolation, which we're all even more familiar with now than we even were 3 years ago. So those are the impacts that I get excited about. Another thing that I wanted to mention is our transportation program.
Okay.
As over the 9 years that I've been here, I've heard time and time again how some people who aren't able to drive anymore, they would love to be involved, but how could they get to us? And we didn't have an LLI bus. So I'm so excited to be able to partner now with Chesterfield County Mobility Services and Access Chesterfield to offer transportation for members to and from LLI classes at no cost.
Awesome.
Because we received grant funding from Genworth Financial Foundation, as well as the Herndon Foundation to fund our transportation program.
Right. So now you have even more people that you're able to impact and bring to the center.
Yes, and it's high quality, point to point transportation, like getting an Uber or a Lyft. We use a company called UServe, and their drivers are background checked. They have first aid and CPR certifications. They're even trained in disability sensitivity and are used to working with older adults. So we've had a lot of success. This has been our first semester being able to offer that, and we look forward to growing that. So if anybody listening is interested in that program or knows somebody that could take advantage, please do get in touch with us.
I realize I've been remiss here. If you're listening to the show, it's in your podcast app of choice. Chesterfield.gov is the website. I'm sure Martin has put that at various points throughout on the visual version that's on YouTube. If you're interested to get more information, you can check out the website. You can reach out directly at info@LLIchesterfield.org, or you can give them a call, 804-378-2527. Rachel, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
All right. Now you can make sure you can check us out on social media. On Twitter, it's @ChesterfieldVA, and on Instagram, it's Chesterfield, Virginia, all one word. And on Facebook, you can check out our podcast page. Just search Chesterfield Behind the Mic. Make sure to like that page so you can keep up with us as we go forward. Now, let me tell you about all the ways you can check us out. You can watch us on the aforementioned YouTube channel, as well as on our website at Chesterfield.gov/podcast. An audio-only version of the show is available there, as well as on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, and a whole host of other services. You can also watch the show on WCCT Thursday through Sunday at 7, on the weekends at noon. That's Comcast Channel 98 and Verizon Channel 28. And lastly, you can check out Chesterfield.gov/connect with us for more information on how you can get in touch with us and we can get in touch with you. My thanks to my director, Martin Stith, our executive producer, Teresa, Bonifas, and all the folks here in communications and media for making this possible. And thank you very much for all of you out there for giving us a listen today. So from all of us here in Chesterfield County, thanks again for making this part of your day. We'll see you again real soon. Take good care.